Go ahead and call this meeting, Board of Supervisors, April 22nd meeting to order. I'll be sitting in for Tim Reeves. He'll be joining us here momentarily, but he had another meeting to get to, so we'll go ahead and proceed with business up until that point. We'll start our meeting. Reverend Ray Mullins, if you'll come forward and lead us in prayer, please. If everybody would stand.
Bow our heads. Almighty, most merciful Heavenly Father, we come before you with thanksgiving. Just a few days after, Lord, you were resurrected. We think and pray that we're all resurrected in our hearts and minds. We'll see the world different, that we'll go forward with a sense of new purpose. We thank you, Father, for the opportunity to participate in the business of the citizens of this county. We ask, Lord, that you would endow this board with your special wisdom, courage, insight. We do pray, Father, for the citizens of this county, for their welfare, for their benefit, for their prosperity. We ask, Father, that as they move forward, that they may move forward with diligence, with confidence, and with a strong sense that you're leading them. Bless, be with, guide, and direct us all, so that we might do your will. For we ask it all in your Son, our Savior's name, Jesus. Amen. Thanks for the opportunity.
Amen. Thank you. And we'll do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item on the agenda is citizens' time. We have two citizens that have signed up to speak. The first is Sam Crockett.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I had plans of bringing this up at our public hearing the other week, and the chairman cut it off before, I didn't sign up, but he cut it off before he called for if anybody else wanted to speak, so I didn't. But talking about the registered entitled vehicles, back in 2005, when we started the PPTRA program, to where they, instead of doing a percentage, each locality got a certain dollar amount of money based on what your fleet value was worth in 2004, and that's what we've been working on ever since. And as our fleet grows, our dollars come down. We're down to right now, this year, we were down to 45% of the percentage that people get off of their cars. But based on the numbers that David handed out, there was a couple of you missed that meeting when we talked about this. I know this is old news as most of you, but a couple of people weren't here. But when you throw in 10,000 cars in the mix that are all valued less than $1,000, all that does is shrinks your PPTRA payback to the other citizens that are going to pay anyway. We hope. We're fortunate most of the people in this county do pay their taxes. But that's going to it's going to reduce our PPTRA by about 10%. And according to what David had calculated out, that's going to be like a 43-cent tax increase. That's going to be the consequences of that, to doing that, unintentional tax increase of about 43 cents based on the averages of what David calculated that he had for that meeting. And yesterday, Faye and I were talking about it, and Faye came up with a good idea, and she talked to Scott about it. Maybe there's an opportunity, before we vote on this, to see if we can't reclassify those as junk cars or something like that, and not throw them in the mix of the PPTRA stuff, to where we don't have to take that money and raise people's taxes unintentionally. I just want to put that out there. And then I know Scott told Faye he was going to look into it. I don't know if there's anything we can do, but it's worth a shot to take a look at it, see if we can do that to prevent everybody else having another big tax increase. We're being taxed to death as it is, not necessarily by our local taxes, but nationally, and prices going up, and times are tough on people.
So what you're reporting is if we keep the ordinance as is with the the titled vehicles, but if we, I mean, I know the amended ordinance goes back to registered vehicles, so would that keep things the same as they have been?
On registered vehicles, you keep it the same, yes.
Yeah, and that's going to be brought up for discussion later.
Well, that's why I did it in citizens time, because I don't get to discuss it then.
Okay.
I just wanted to throw it out there. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, another citizen, Earl Libby. Mr. Libby, if you'll state your name and address, please.
Greetings, I am Earl S. Libby, and I live at the top of Carterville Heights Road in the Max Meadows area, and I am a Christian. I'd like to propose a potential solution to the lack of affordable housing within the county. Right now, there is a large shopping center in the county that is sitting empty. I propose that the county send an engineer out to the Fort Chiswell Shopping Center, which is located near Exit 80 off of I-81, with the concurrent permission of the owner of the property to see if the empty stores are equipped with any plumbing. If so, perhaps a federal grant could be obtained to determine the cost of repairing any structural problems, plus erect inner walls and doors and install a small kitchen and a proper bathroom. And for second floor access, one or more elevators with emergency backup generator support must all be considered. Some of the larger empty stores look like they could be converted to hold 4, maybe even 5 bedrooms. And such large accommodations are always needed and are always in short supply. One problem would be interior lighting, but overhead skylights could be the solution to that problem. Additionally, one of the larger stores, perhaps centrally located, might be considered for leasing to Food Lion or another grocery chain. And as this would be a county property, perhaps the contract or lease with the vendor could be restricted from selling any lottery, tobacco, or alcohol-related products. They will complain that these health-destroying lines produce a fair share of income, but rental charges could be adjusted to account for not selling these items. Public transportation from and to this housing center to central areas of Wythe would be necessary but not insurmountable. This also applies to school buses. Any exterior pickup areas should be considered for covered shelters. A certain amount of converting housing could be modified to fully and completely comply with the Americans with Disability Act requirements. First floor units that are not amenable to skylights could be adapted for classrooms, social areas, etc. And for the record, I have no financial interest in that property, nor do I even know who owns it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Liddy. That's all we've got signed up to speak. Any other citizens here to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll close citizens' time. Board members, moving on in the agenda, the next item is the minutes for the previous meeting. Do I have a motion to accept?
I make a motion, we accept the minutes as presented.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or changes? Okay, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So, motion carries 6-0 with one absent. Next item on the agenda is the payment of invoices.
Mr. Chairman, I move to pay the invoice.
Okay, got a motion on the floor?
Second.
Got a second? Any discussion about payment of invoices? Okay, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Hausman?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And aye. Motion carries 6-0 with one absent. We're going to skip old business since that involves the discussion around our two proposed ordinances, and our seventh member will be here shortly. So we're going to go down to the reports. Sam, you're up again.
On our consolidated account reports, currently we stand at $50,913,000 in all of our accounts. And on our trial balance, In our general fund, we're at $31,995,000, which is pretty healthy trial balance, our general fund. And as far as collections go, to date, we've collected $18,161,000. It's about 99% of our budget. About all of our items are in good shape. Personal property is behind. We have until May the 1st, where that was the date we put out to get the taxes paid before we do the DMV stops. So we still got a few more days. We were hoping a lot more traffic would come in. Normally, by April 15th was when they come in and pay. In March, we sent out 6,200 delinquent tax notices, and as of yesterday afternoon, I ran a report, and we've still got 4,422 delinquent tickets out. We collected from 1,800 people, or 1,800 tax tickets, for a total of $290,047 during that month period. So we're still getting some to come in. I guess the last week, so a lot of that was town of Wythe and town of Rory Treat having to get their decals, and they were coming in and paying. So we'll see what happens when we get our information and get it sent out. But dollar-wise, we're a little ahead of where we were this time last year as far as money goes, but the personal property last year at this time, we had exceeded our budget by 6%, 6.43%. So the decals do make a difference. It was a hammer on their head to make them come in and pay. And we'll see. We've had several people talking about the DMV stops and stuff. Whether it brings them in, we'll have to find out. I talked to Sam Campbell the other day. He was in the office. He's an attorney from Pulaski County. He used to do a lot of work with Rosemary when she was a treasurer down there, doing treasury summonses to come to the office and talk. And I was asking him how Pulaski was doing. They did away with their decals a couple of years ago. They went to a permanent decal and do the DMV stops. And it's really not working too good for Pulaski County, was his opinion. I've done V-stops for years on warrants. We're in the summer when the sheriff's department can't find people. We do DMV stops. We had some success with it, but not a lot. About every 3 months, I'd get a list back from DMV, say these are unfindable, you can't find these, or somebody traded cars and they couldn't stop them, so they'd send it back to us. We'll just have to see how it works out. But the collection rate is definitely down. So, anybody got any questions?
Looks like delinquent taxes on real estate are over budget. Is that coming in? Does that have anything to do with the sales of properties, or is that just people catching up?
People catching up. So we've got those two contracts. We have our in-house contracts of about 75 people, and those are winding down now. And Tax is the company that's doing our judicial sale. They've put people on contracts, and we're getting checks from them every month. So we continue to get those contracts coming in. I'm still waiting for them to give me a date for a sale. I talked to John Wythe about it, and I told him we wanted to have it in the spring, and now they're talking about the summer. But but they got a lot of people on contract right now that are making payments. So, as long as we're getting some money in, it works out pretty good. So, but that year is about up on those contracts. I only gave people a year to get it paid, and I think they're giving them 18 months down there.
Mr. Dalton?
Same old, these other taxes, looking at your report and stuff, I guess, is there any other method to hire a collection agency or anything else?
Well, we're still going to be doing our warrant and debts for all the businesses and corporation businesses. This year, we're working on that, getting the information from the state the state, not compensation board, what is it? State Corporation Commission. We have to go in on their computer website and look up anybody that's incorporated. We have to get your registered agent and print out a sheet to go with the warrants. So we're working on our warrants, and we're gonna have a bunch of warrants still again this year for all, that's what we're doing for businesses. If they have vehicles, we'll do the DMV stops on that part of it. But, we're still gonna have a bunch of warrants, but we still have a bunch of, we ran a report, putting it in numerical order is how we do it each year. We classify by dollar amount. We start at the bottom with the biggest money and go up. And we got pages and pages of people less than $20, you know, and it's just not worth sheriff's time to go looking for $20. And is it worth our time to put those on DMV stops? I'm not sure. We need to think about that. You know, I'm going to do at least $20 because that's what the fee is, the license fee. But anybody below that, I don't know if it's worthwhile to do a DMV stop on or not. Y'all need to help me decide that, what you want to do. But what we do on warrants, if they go 2 or 3 years, you know, they owe $12 on a mobile home or something. After about 3 years, we add them all together and then do a warrant debt against them that way. But it just takes time.
Can I ask a question? I was looking at the uncollected taxes. It looks like in 2009, we've got like over 200,000. And then in 2010, it's 78,000. Is there any?
Each year it drops down considerably. We collect it.
Right, 2010 is much less than 2009 in uncollected. So is there something in 2009, like a large
There may be a.
that may have paid in 2010? Would that be?
Possible. Well, no, it would still come off the 2009 tax.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a business or something that still owes us 9 taxes.
Yeah, it looks like it might be a larger
Yeah.
account instead of
Yeah.
a lot of small accounts. So, any other questions for Sam?
But to answer your question, a collection agency, I don't know if it,
I just wondered if that was a method that you had available or the county had available.
well, there are people out there that do that. But when they start doing these liens against people and garnishing their wages and stuff, I've never really been a fan of garnishing people's wages because you can make them lose their job doing that. And in fact, Tax did that to somebody they had on contract. He had a contract and they got behind and they garnished the lady's wages because the man wasn't working, but they were divorced, and we got in the middle of that and had to talk to 2 lawyers about what to do with it. And so, you know, garnishments, I just don't like them. I think it affects people's lives too much. Keep from doing that, I think you ought to. And that's what a lot of collection agencies do. I mean, it may be effective, but they don't have to live here with the people. I do.
Well, I just know that the hospital does hundreds and hundreds every Friday or whatever day court day is.
Well,
Pretty small amounts of money. Which turn into big ones.
well, it does. But that's what our warrants work pretty good too, collecting that. And that's what we're working on right now.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? Is the county exempt from having to pay the state for garnishment?
I'm not sure. They don't charge us any court fees or anything like that unless we serve somebody out of county or out of state. Then we have to pay $12 or $26 a person. If we're out of state, we have to go through the Secretary of Commonwealth to do that. But for garnishments, I don't know if they charge a fee for that or not, because I don't know.
The reason I asked, I just did one and it cost me $98.
To do the garnishment, well, you'd have to be awful selective who you did it on.
That's not including the warrant or nothing. You take it to court, that's $58, I believe, on it. So if you take all of them, you're gonna tie up another $200 just to get 20.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
No, I agree.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Seat failure, here. Did you have anything to speak to the board about? Or you just, okay, great, thanks. Next on the agenda is the Fire and Rescue Committee. Gary?
Fire and Rescue Committee met on April the 10th, 2014, and recommends the following appointments to the Wythe County Rescue Squad Board of Directors. There are 5 names there. They are Martha Umbarger, Keith St. John, Roger Hudson, Jay Wright, Sally Callahan. It's not always easy to find people to serve on a board like that, and each one of those people have unique talents that they bring to the board. So those people are recommended by the Fire and Rescue Committee to serve as Wythe County Rescue Squad Board of Directors.
Okay.
And Mr. Dalton, you may have a,
May I request that the Fire and Rescue Committee consider adding the statement on that, those are contingent upon verification that they live within the service area.
yes, because, and I can't remember what number it is on the bylaws, but it states that they will be appointed from people who live in the service area. So I think that we would entertain that as a change.
Okay.
So we'll add then pending, proof or verification, I guess, that they live in the service area.
Coming from a committee, it does not need a second, so is there any further discussion on these appointments? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny? Aye.
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 And aye. Motion carries 6-0 with 1 absent. Next on the agenda is the Ag Expo status update. I know Tim is on that and is not here. Joe or Gene, did you all?
Well, we did have a meeting, Gene attended, and Gary, you had asked for
An organizational
their
chart.
structure, and we got that.
Good.
Tim, I asked it be delivered to him, and he'll make sure you get a copy.
Okay.
And we're moving forward to our meeting regularly, and hope it's going to become reality.
Any other question on that? Or? Okay, next item is the Water Committee. Gene, is that you?
Yes, sir. And I actually made one. The Water Committee met on April 15, 2014, and recommends that any resident that the county does not have confirmation on the registered letter, a returned letter to the county, or a letter that is undeliverable, be provided the full amount of time that the date the letter was handed out, as noted in the frequently asked questions handout. Y'all need me to explain what that means? Basically, it's saying that if we send out certified letters and they don't get them, and we wait, I mean, it's going to take some time for us to find out who got them, who didn't, and if they have to hand deliver them, instead of them having the date that everybody else is going to have, they're going to have 90 days from the date they actually get the letter. What we ran into is we had some that got it, they didn't get notification until, I want to say, April the 8th, and we were telling them that they had until the 21st to do it, and we just didn't feel like that was right.
Yeah, we're not penalizing them for not getting their notification. Any?
About 12 or so residents.
In the Speedwell
Okay.
water line right now that didn't get it and stuff.
Okay, coming from a committee, it does not need a second. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Hausman?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. Motion carries 6-0, 1 absent. Mr. Dalton did give a letter or request here. Does look like it involves water. Don't know that we would be prepared to take action today. I would recommend this be referred to the Water Committee for their next meeting.
We can do that.
Okay. All right, next on the agenda is the county administrator report.
Vice Chairman, have one item, a letter from District 3. Mr. Reeve is on that, the District 3 is our representative. It's really asking the county and maybe the towns work together to summarize how we can make, because we have baby boomers aging out and retiring, how we can make living in the county more successful for those type of people and come up with a plan. I would ask, put it on the next joint meeting with the two towns, discussion. Or the two town committees to take it to the two towns now and work on it. Either or, there's.
I think the joint meeting, I think we usually look for some common ground on the agenda, so that, since they're reaching out to everyone. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have
Go
a
ahead, Mr.
question. Is this not something that would appropriately be addressed in the comprehensive plan?
I think it needs to be addressed, that should be. Maybe we should refer it also to the plan. District 3 should be here sometime this morning, make a presentation on the conference.
Oh,
Okay. I guess as it stands now, we can recommend it for the joint meeting and then maybe get a little more information when we get to the comprehensive plan. Is that all you have, Mr. Dalton?
Yes,
For
sir,
now.
thank you.
All right, next, county attorney.
I don't have anything to report right now.
Okay. Next, we'll do our board reports. We'll start in the Blacklit district.
I received one phone call yesterday. Lady was just asking some questions about Wythe County Rescue, which was fine. She was just, again, just seeking, excuse me, a little bit of information. But then she talked to me about a concern that she had, and I have to tell you, I don't know because I don't go out there. She was concerned about the recycling center out on Route 52 on Stony Fork Road. She said that when she goes, that she kind of parks outside and walks the bag of trash in because she said that it's hard for her to see through the fence. And again, I'm just passing that along. I don't have any firsthand experience, and I just talked to her last night, so I told her that I would, would bring that up. It may not need to be looked at. I can't tell you.
I've been there the last 2 mornings and probably going back tomorrow. I think what she's probably talking about is when you're exiting, if a car's coming in, you really can't see. You have to be careful. If you just speed on, you can get T-boned probably. But I don't know how it would be changed except for tearing the fence down.
That's all I have.
Okay. East Wytheville.
Nothing, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Okay. Fort Chiswell.
I have some, obviously, for Mr. Russell when he gets here.
Yeah.
Sheriff's not here. I've had complaints about the trash and dumping on Ramsey Mountain Road. It seems to be getting worse. And I'll ask the sheriff about a cleanup over there and see if we can't do something. I would like to ask Mr. Dalton, do we have a county ordinance about littering and dumping? There's no signs, I don't think, left in the county. Is there a county ordinance, or are we under the state ordinance?
We're in the state, but throughout the county, there's quite a few places that still have signs, no dumping, no, and we can ask VDOT to put those up at each location. My understanding, they'll install those signs.
Well, from your past experience, will signs improve enforcement any?
No, but the guardrail real close to the road usually stops the problem. On Denver Road, years ago, we had a huge problem where they had a place to pull off and put signs up. That just encouraged more. We side of the road, same thing on, like, after the Ridge Road, I think. We did the same thing, put a guardrail up there, sort of, when they didn't have a place to pull off and stop, sort of eliminated the problem. But on Ramsey Mountain Road, down that hollow, it's really not any place, it's just a flat place in the road, they're flat, but they can pull off deer carcasses, every other thing.
Tires. I got the complaint from somebody that lives up there. And the question comes with that, the convenience centers have a lot of rules, but there's not a rule about taking trash, that if the tires, they don't take but a very few tires, what is it, 4 a year?
For any vehicle, you can bring another registration vehicle, you can take it, if you got six vehicles, you can take 24 tires per vehicle.
Okay. That's all.
I personally never had a problem taking tires to the convenience center.
I wouldn't imagine you'd have a problem taking anything to the convenience center.
Saturday morning, nobody in the county can recognize me with my hat and my kid. You probably met me and didn't know me.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hale. Lead mines, Coy.
I had a request to see if we could get the cleanup crew to pick up from 619 to Pope Road. And I had some road issues, but I'll save those for Mr. Russell.
Mr. Russell. Looks like he's going to be in demand this morning, as normal, right? Okay. Speedwell, Gene?
I had got some road issues, but one of them is putting roads on a 6-year plan. Is that something I need to wait and talk to Mr. Russell, or is that something the board needs to do?
We're going to talk about the 6-year plan.
I knew we was talking about it, but I just didn't know if we'd talk about putting new roads on it.
When you're broke, it's hard to.
I know, but I've been asked. There was one thing that I needed to ask. The Speedwell Fire Department's going to have their fishing tournament. I can't remember the date. It's the first Saturday and Sunday in May. And they were wanting to know if it's okay to continue to use the county property down there on the corner to let people camp on.
Need a motion?
Did they traditionally do that?
We have for years.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we let them use it.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll do just a voice vote this time. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 6-0 with one absent.
Thank y'all, and that's all I have.
Is that all for you? I don't have anything, and of course, Supervisor at Large is not present, so we'll move on to new business. First item is the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
I've got a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented in a second. Any discussion about the consent calendar? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. Motion carries to accept the consent calendar 6-0 with one absent. Next item on new business is the stormwater management resolution. I think there's a letter there, or it starts on page 119 of your board package. Mr. Dalton, do you have any comments on this item?
Actually, we have with Mr. Vaughn, county engineer also, but as you know, the General Assembly has changed the requirement of stormwater management. For the last few years, we were in the direction of having to do stormwater management that's passed General Assembly, allow you to, I guess, legislation is opt in instead of opt out. So currently, I think it's staff's recommendation Recreation, we've had long discussions and some correspondence concerning Progress Park and other activities that we currently are ongoing, that we will stay under the old regulations, which is a good thing. At this point in time, I don't think that it is in our, the county's best interest to opt in. So this Board of Supervisors take no action unless you want to go on record that you don't want to be opt in to the stormwater management program. DEQ will manage that.
So by not opting in, we're managing it independent ourselves.
If we don't opt in, they will manage it.
They're managing it, okay.
So the regulations will still be there, it's just instead of us taking the heat, they'll have to take the heat.
Yes. Ms.
I
Murphy?
agree with that.
And they collect the fees directly.
Because if we manage it, it's probably additional personnel and expense to the
What we
county.
will do is that anybody comes and gets a building permit, and those that don't get a building permit, when the activities go on. For example, Gene Horney builds a barn. Currently, we don't issue a building permit, but Gene Horney's new barn will require stormwater management.
Status of the grant that we got to implement this.
We've spent portions of it. We will return any unspent portions of the grant.
But we are not liable for what we have spent.
Yeah, I think the letter says if you opt in, then you have to do that by the end of this month. But if we choose not to opt in, no action's necessary, so.
Well, we're going to send a letter saying we've decided that we're not going to do it. At this point, our question to DEQ has been, how are they going to do it? They've not ramped up the staff or anything else, but they claim they will get it done.
Does that leave soil and erosion in the county?
It does.
It'll just, this will just be the provisions of stormwater management. And if we take this non-action, are we really gonna keep our nose out of it and leave it up to DEQ?
Yeah.
Good thing.
May I ask one more question?
Sure.
On page, whatever it is, page 126 of the agenda, item number 6, it's the cons of opting out. If you go down to the third bulleted item from the bottom, it says locality loses option to reduce increase fees. What kind of freedom do we have to do that anyway? Did we?
Actually, you had there was minimum fees set by the state.
Right.
There's been a few counties
That have increased that?
actually decreased. They were just going to charge the state's portion and absorb the cost. So I think what that bulletin's really saying, except for the state required portion of the fee, that bulletin's just saying that you don't have that opportunity to change those fees. The state will set the fees.
Well, just one other question, I'm sorry. But the state will just set state fees,
Yes,
so we will not have a locality fee attached to it?
that's exactly.
Okay. And that's the only thing that we, by opting in, that's the only thing that you can control, is the locality. Okay, I'm fine.
You'd probably have to charge a fee if you opted in to offset the investment, local investment. So hearing no motions to opt in, I would assume we're going to stay opted out. All right, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is Mr. Russell, and I don't see him. So I do see Dr. Lee Brannon, so we'll just move to the Wythe County School Construction Update and whatever else you want to share with us, Dr. Brannon.
Thank you, Mr. All Board members, Mr. Dalton. Just wanted to come and give you an update of everything that's going on. If you don't keep up with me, you can read about me. So just keep your comments personal, I guess. Let me know if you need to discuss that in any way. At Rural Retreat Middle School, we've moved another section of the students into the renovated part of the building. The downstairs, the seventh grade is now in those classrooms. They're substantially completed. Of course, there's punch lists and all the different things that we have to go through, but they're really excited. They've started their own moving company at the middle school now. The teachers and everybody there are getting used to it, and they've just really been real excited about moving into the new areas. They're now demolishing the upstairs at Rural Retreat Middle School. The only problem, the bathroom, the grout, the epoxy grout did not come in on time, so the two bathrooms downstairs, which were supposed to be completed at the same time you have students there, it's a little inconvenient right now. We're having to go back upstairs to use the bathrooms, and they will not start renovating those bathrooms until they have the ones downstairs complete. So really, that's the only inconvenience we have at this time. It will be the last move as we head now into testing season. We've completed one part, the writing, which was completed earlier in the spring, but as we head into testing season, we tried to coordinate these moves to where they're completed now. Once we start testing on May 7th, there will not be any further moves, unless it might be one classroom or two up to this point as we head toward the end of the year. We still have some subcontractor issues with the canopy at Rural Retreat. We've dealt with it since day one, and we finally got the roof put on, and the aesthetics look good, and then instead of putting the specified guttering and downspouts on the canopy, they just decided to bend some tin and rivet it together. So whenever it rains, it just pours out. So we're well aware of these problems, and if you notice that or see it, we have no idea. And they've threatened to fire the subcontractor a couple times, but we just haven't come to any resolve about it. But I just want you to know that we're on top of it, and we'll make sure that they stay in compliance with the specifications that were called for in the bid. So the canopy does look better, but it's not complete up to this point. The windows and window treatments are installed downstairs now at Rural Retreat Middle School. You'll see the same sun-filtered shades that are in the high school. They sort of match up. You still have the other windows on the upstairs level and in the cafeteria and old gym. Those will be done in the summer. We're not going to try to replace any of those until summertime gets here. Plus the renovation of the gym will be in the summer, and then any completed cafeteria renovations, which are primarily windows and doors, at Rural Retreat Middle School for the summer. We have discovered a plumbing issue that we were not aware of. We either have a drain line or something to the septic system that has been crushed at some point. We can't get all of our lines draining out to the building. They're stopping up. So there's probably going to be some additional work there necessary to get those things resolved in the administrative area and some of the others, which is the addition that was added on to the original building there. So we've just got an issue at some point. We ran, had people there trying to get the blockage out, and it seems like we've moved it a little way and it works fine for a while, but I think in the end we've got some crushed lines or something along the way that we're working on to try to take care of that. The new intercom system is working now in both areas, so safety and security, of course, is the number one concern that we have. We're still trying to work on all the issues of completing the classrooms, making sure the students are able to move in, and everything that the teacher needs to accommodate teaching and learning is in place before the students move. We do expect substantial completion by the start of school next year, and there'll be work continuing on throughout the summer at Rural Retreat Middle School. So things are really starting to look better. That group were behind about 4 weeks on their scheduled construction, but they have now met the time dates for the completion, so we feel like they're moving along fairly well. At Sheffey, as you can see, the gym community center is up and You saw part of it when you took the tour. The brick and block are almost complete. They did keep the one end. Everybody asks me this question. You all don't, but everybody says, why'd you leave that hole in the end of the community center and gym at Sheffey? Well, it was so we could pour the concrete. Okay, now the brick masons didn't like it. They wanted to go in and go ahead and get their work done, but they're completing the masonry work on the area now. The slab has been poured. We did run into some suitable soil issues before they poured the slab. But we have an independent person that we contract to inspect all those soil areas before we allow anything to go on. So they found some soil. They're ending up, I think they're going to have to take care of this because putting the roof on didn't coordinate with us pouring the slab, and the roofing contractor didn't meet the exact dates that he was supposed to have it on, so therefore it contained a lot of moisture during the winter, and it created some of the unsuitable soil in the far southeastern corner of the gym. So we're working to solidify that, but it was backfilled and compacted before they poured that slab. The next issue we'll have is before we put the wood floor on and we get everything sealed in, we'll do moisture test on the concrete, do strips of wood for the gym floor. Anytime you put a wood floor down, you want to make sure that it is satisfactory to go down in those certain areas. One of the key things you'll notice, and this was really a change midway through, as you know, in the old gym, we had parquet flooring. And, it really called initially to put VCT tile over top of it. And we started looking at it, and we said, that's probably a definition of that school that we'd like to keep. So what we did, and we actually saved money by doing this, was took the parquet flooring, sanded it down, took all the striping and stuff that was in an original gym, because there's going to be 4 classrooms in there. And we're going to leave the parquet flooring sanded and finished in the old gym at Sheffey. Instead of tearing all that floor up, which is very expensive, by the way, if you tried to put it back down, or putting VCT tile over top of it, we're going to leave that area, and it's back down to a good-looking wood floor. It's all covered now with subflooring, just because of stepping on it and doing that. But as they construct those classrooms, once that's opened up, the flooring in there will be the original gym flooring, and it'll be resealed and finished for those classrooms. So that's a little bit of a change, but sort of an identity thing for a building, and why ruin a good floor when you've got one down to put VCT tile over top of it. Restrooms are complete now at Sheffey. We've started demolition in the old gym, restrooms, locker room area. They're putting the walls up for the classrooms in the old gym. The cafeteria, we've met with all the subcontractors to make sure we get the cafeteria equipment, and all the substantial things we need to complete the cafeteria. They're going to be ordered and there on time. So when they start renovating the cafeteria at Sheffey, which will be the day after we let school out, and substantial completion is again predicted for Sheffey as well, to have everything done by the time school starts next year. We do have a window issue at Sheffey. We don't feel like we're getting the quality of work in the window work up there, the aesthetics, what it looks like after it's put in, the trim work. So if you're up there, we're working on that as well. We're pretty persistent about these things that come up, and of course any punch list that comes up, we try to let them know ahead of time that there's an issue with it before they go ahead and install 40 or 50 other windows, that we're not satisfied with. So casework installation, we've had a little bit of subcontracting problem with some casework up there, not trimmed or cut specifically to actually fit right. But the supervisor and superintendent on the job up there is really taking care of those issues without us getting involved. They know the casework in an elementary school is one of the primary things that a lot of people see, and basically he's just boxing it up and sending it back, and they're having to recut it and send it to where it fits appropriately. Unfortunately, the same subcontractor who's doing the canopy at Rural Retreat Middle School was also doing the canopy at Sheffey. And needless to say, we're having the same problems up there. So it looks like there's just going to be a total removal of that subcontractor from the last meeting on last Wednesday before we got out for spring break, and just have to bring somebody else in to complete the work and go from there. Again, substantial completion at Sheffey School also by the time school starts next year. So if you have any questions or concerns about the construction, I'll continually give you an update, probably try to come at least once a month or every other month as we go through the summer as well. And we'll schedule another tour maybe, and then, of course, we'll do a grand opening later on in the fall for both of those schools. Just a couple other items. As I mentioned, testing is underway. So if you're married or even close to a teacher, just give them a little bit of respect for the next 6 to 9 weeks. They will be mad. They'll be ornery. They will be stressed to no end. It's that time period. And, of course, the students, I think they handle it pretty good, but still it stresses them out as well during this time period. So if you're near one and somebody snaps at you, just say, oh, yeah, they're a teacher and they're in testing time. So, give them a free pass for at least one time anyway. Graduation dates are set. You'll be getting invitations to those, just so you can plan for your calendars. I know you all like to attend. It's great to have you there. It really says a statement about the cooperation and collaboration between the school board and the Board of Supervisors. When you all show up at graduations, it's really good public relations for that. The Wythe County Technology Center will be graduating Thursday, May 29th at 7 p.m. at George Wythe Auditorium, and I will get you all a list of these. But just to give you an insight, Rural Retreat High School will graduate Friday, May 30th at Community Stadium. And just to let you all know who normally at 6 o'clock who attend Rural Retreat, Mr. Neal has called the railroad commander in Roanoke, and he has promised that he will do his absolute best. He told him he needed 54 minutes. If he could just give us 54 minutes between 6 o'clock and 6:54, that there would be no trains coming through at that time. If you were there last year, we had 3 and one of them backed up. Yeah, he went down the track and then he backed up. So we had 3 independent trains, and then one went by the stadium, and we thought that was the last one, and John Brownpie didn't back up and go the other way. So he's trying to be proactive this year and called him in plenty of time to try to get those scheduled. Mr. Reeves, how are you today? Good, good. George Wythe High School will be on Friday, May 30th at 8 p.m. at Pendleton Field. And I think last year was a little bit windy at Rural Retreat, but we've had good success in having these graduations outside. It's been really nice, and that's the plans of the principals to do that. Of course, inclement weather, storms, anything like that, then they'll be moved inside to the gyms. But that's at 8 o'clock at Pendleton Field for George Wythe High School on Friday, May 30th. Fort Chiswell High School will be Saturday morning at 10 a.m., May 31st at C.F. McKinney Field. So a lot of things to look forward to, a lot of graduates going to be going through school during that time period. I'll be glad to take any questions on construction or anything that's going on in the school system, testing. We're still working with budgets. I think I told you last time, I have 4 state budgets now that we're balancing, trying to figure out which way it's going to go. We do have specific needs that we cannot do without you all. I'll just be perfectly clear with you. And, there are just certain things that even though we received additional state money this year, we cannot continue to be competitive. We cannot continue to attract and retain the best people for our jobs. We cannot continue to support the teacher pension plan through the VRS and to provide health insurance benefits as you all do and as we do without your help. So, any questions?
I've got a couple on Sheppey Construction. When we did our visit down there, there was a set of risers in there that we told Mr. Poole we didn't want the contractor to scrap those.
That's correct.
Have we stayed on top of that?
We sure have.
Because they're good.
Yep.
They could very easily be scrapped for the aluminum value that's in them, but there's several places the county could utilize those. The other thing, is there any pre-planning going on for the night and extra usage of the gym? Is there a structure working to work with the principal and the school to have the gym used the way we thought it would be?
Mr. Dalton and I have already drafted up a memorandum of understanding between the two groups. And then once we get out of school this year, I'm sure the Parks and Recreation Department, Dr. Poole, Mr. Dalton, myself, whoever is going to be involved in scheduling that, we want to make sure it's used as many hours as it possibly can be. So we've got that memorandum drafted up, and he and I are finalizing a few you know, wordsmithing, I guess, to make sure we get everything that, so everybody understands up front how it's going to be used. We want it to be used.
Thank you.
And those bleachers, just to let you know, we did take the ones from Rural Retreat. We didn't give those to the contractors, and we put them in the auxiliary gym at Scott, at George Wythe, and we also put bleachers in at Scott Memorial with those gyms. So we used that set of bleachers.
Good, good.
And we'll be glad to use these. We don't have a need, but we know to keep them, and if you all have a need, certainly we can use them for that.
Mr. Dalton?
Last week or week before, I went out and delivered a message to Dr. Brandon. Later on in the agenda, it says time to be determined. But I'd asked Dr. Brandon to, when we reconvene about the budget, to make a presentation of the effects of flat funding this year. So that before he leaves today, if we can set that time for Thursday or whenever.
Do we want to go ahead and set it now? I mean, that's fine with me. Since I don't know if you plan on staying for the whole
Sort of
meeting.
drives our budget no matter what. Teacher contracts have to be out sometime,
Sometime.
hopefully before school's out.
It's preferably, especially, you know, we lose some if we don't get them out.
All right, we've got that later, but I think we could go ahead and set that time. For me, on Thursday, I can't be here till 1, but I can be here 1 till whenever. So I'll throw that out there if anybody.
If we're gonna have to wait till 1, I'd rather wait till 5.
Okay. How does that work with everybody? 5's, I guess, what's?
That's fine
Mm-hmm.
with me.
I guess at 5 till midnight.
Sounds good.
You'll be number 1 on the agenda.
Okay, 5 o'clock? All right.
Now, are we planning on meeting on Friday as well, or is?
No, Thursday, hopefully.
Okay.
I'm not sure what we can accomplish, doing Dr. Brandon's and the school board's direction on what we can fund and what we can't fund. We can move on. But actually, for the state of Virginia,
Right.
quits their impersonation of the federal government.
Well, I was going to, since both of y'all are here in the same
Sure,
room, what
sure.
if the state does not pass, a budget, which I guess constitutionally they have to, but the U.S. Constitution does as well, and, I mean, where does that stand? I mean, what kind of funding do you get from the state? Just what you had last year? Do they not fund anything? What are we looking at?
Well, I hope it's not what last year, because that affects the jail and some other.
And we got more money this year from them, a little bit more.
Right. I mean,
It's mainly for the VRS.
I've thought about that.
There will be, the governor's budget will almost rule by default.
Yes.
Which is not a bad thing, but sure put some impetus on the other guys. You know, they're pretty close on the budget except for one, the Medicaid expansion.
Right. But that one doesn't seem to be moving.
So,
So basically, if they don't adopt a budget, then the governor's budget defaults.
I think at the end of the day, they had re-benchmarking in the school system.
That's correct.
That'll kick in no matter what.
Right.
But some of these specialized programs that have been added by either the House, the governor, or the Senate will just be out the door. They'll come to an agreement at the last minute. Our problem is.
June 30th, yeah.
We've got 350 teachers and others that maybe up to 600 people. that
Correct.
Have contracts that we've got to make a decision and move forward.
Yeah.
And we, you know, if we don't have one by June 15th, we have to send out the what I refer to, it's not very nice, but the crying letters, because anybody who's not on tenure, if they have less than 3 years, Dr. Hausman, you've been through that situation. We don't like to send them out because they immediately panic and start looking for jobs. And a lot of times, some of our best teachers are those teachers who have less than 5 years. Used to be less than 3, but now it's less than 5 years. So, you know, if we send them those letters that says, I can't guarantee their contract because of the budget, then they have an opportunity to go somewhere else. Of course, there could be a
No
lot of
other
other
county can do
divisions.
it either.
Right, could be a lot of other divisions that be in that same boat as well.
I'm always perplexed when I read the paper and it says, this county's already adopted a budget and the state hadn't adopted a budget.
Yeah. Well, we sort of use the language we use in Wythe County with the school board is adopted versus approved. You know, we have to adopt something to get it to you all because we're mandated by April to get that to you all. And then so we adopt, but we don't officially approve one until we know how much money we have. And there's, like Mr. Dalton said, there's very little difference. In Governor McAuliffe's budget proposals, though, he is counting on Medicaid reimbursement money to fund part of his things. The teacher's 2% raise, the $7 million additional for pre-K, the opportunity for localities to go into the state health insurance program, which there's no funding for that. That's just an opportunity. And some of the other stuff that he has in there is all contingent on the federal reimbursement dollars coming to the state, so he can use the state dollars to then offset some of his proposals. So, but the Senate budget is very close, you know. There's only a few $1,000s difference between those two. So either one of those two. The House is about $160,000 less. So preferably, we want the Senate budget to be approved if at all possible, because that reduces our request to you all by that amount. I mean, there's no additional things we're going to place in there if we receive additional money from the state. That will just reduce the initial amount that we requested from you all by how many additional state dollars we have.
Any other questions for Dr. Brandon at this time? Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Brandon.
you.
As Chairman Reeves is now present for the meeting, I will step down as chairman and turn it over to you. I don't know if you want to take a recess or catch up on the agenda, or where are we at? This is where we're at right now. And we skipped that. You might wanna take a
Figure out what
recess.
you're doing.
Yeah. Let's take a 10-minute recess. Moving along with the agenda, I'm going to ask Chief Deputy Dunnigan to come in and give us a report this morning.
Mr. Chairman, the sheriff apologizes for not being here today, but he's away at the Spring Sheriff's Conference. But he did have something that he wanted to present to the board today. Apparently, somebody had asked him for an update on the trash pickup program. Our totals for total number of bags of trash we picked up as of last weekend before last is 2,860 bags of trash, and the total weight of that was 88,270 pounds. And I talked to Deputy Jackson, who's handles the trash pickup program, and he said since July will be 1 year, they're really shooting to try to get 100,000 pounds of trash by that date. Also, I got this document contains a list of where and how much trash has been picked up around the county. I will leave this with Salel if anybody wants to look at it and see exactly where. You'll notice that there are probably some weekends that were skipped, and that if they were, that was due to the weather, and we've had a couple problems with the van mechanically. That's why we weren't able to pick up last week. But I'll leave this with Salel, and if y'all have no more questions, that's all I've got.
Again, telling you guys that the board really appreciates what they're doing out there, and the citizens of the county does too. They've done a tremendous job out there.
I can tell you that we have a lot of positive comments from citizens about this program, and they appreciate that the board has gone to the trouble and time to make that possible.
Keith, before you leave there, a meeting or two ago, I brought up that I believe an education program needs to happen between your department and the schools.
Yes, sir.
To get it from kindergarten to the third grade or something, because y'all picking up a lot of trash, but it's being regenerated They're throwing out trash. I almost bet that that paper will show you where the hotspot areas are, and you can pick it up, and a week later, it looks bad again. So I think that education and enforcement are the two things we need to implement next.
I agree with you. And I've looked at, or I've researched trying to see if somebody's already done what we want to do about that, and I haven't been able to locate a program yet, but I'm still exploring that, and I hope to find one. I can't imagine that somebody somewhere doesn't have something like that. But you're exactly right about some of the problem spots. We have been back to a couple spots just in this first year of the program. We have gone back to a couple of spots, generally close to the interstates, and we picked up almost as much trash when we went back a second time as we did the first time.
Anybody have any other questions for Keith?
No, but, Mr. Chairman, what Chief Deputy Daniken is here, would it be appropriate to go ahead and make a motion to approve this Byron Justice Assistance Grant?
That's one of the one-time use grants, and we're using it for a computer this year because before the records management system changes that we implemented when we went with 911, we still have some computers that will not be compliant to, or current enough to accept this new software upgrade that we're getting on the records management system next month, I think, isn't it, Slade? And yeah, next month.
It requires $135 matching grant. So if it's appropriate, I'd make the motion that we amend and appropriate in line item 3102-48202, furniture and fixtures, $135 for them to, to receive this grant.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion to accept the grant. I have a second. Any further discussion?
Break that amount?
I did say that, yeah.
I'll do a roll call vote. Gene?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Motion passes
Thank
7-0. Thank you. I'm going to be skipping around on the agenda here a little bit. Next, we have the Wythe County Comprehensive Plan update from Mr. Michael Armbruster.
Good morning. I'm actually Salem Bush.
Okay.
I'll be talking on behalf of Mount Rogers. I have some forms to pass out to y'all, if that's okay. Good morning. I'm Salem Bush, and I work for the Mount Rogers Planning District Commission, and I've been working closely with your staff and the Planning Commission on the Wythe County Comprehensive Plan update. And so far, the plan is, the update's been going smoothly. We're pretty much on track for the original schedule. A few things are a little bit behind, like the transportation chapter, but I have full confidence that we'll get that done and get it into VDOT on time for their review. I'd like to just go through kind of where we are at with the chapters that we've discussed so far and that we've updated so far. If you look at the list, the transportation chapter is about 95% completed. Chapter 3, the population chapter, is completed. Chapter 4, the housing chapter, is about 90% completed. Chapter 2, a place and a people, is in progress, and Chapter 5, economy, is also in progress. Do you all have any questions or concerns on what we've already discussed with the Planning Commission thus far and the chapters that we've already updated?
Board member have any questions?
Okay. Next thing, I'd just like to mention to y'all the next topics that we'll be talking about at the future Planning Commission meetings. We still need to finalize Chapter 4 of housing, Chapter 3 of population, Chapter 2 of place and a people, and we also need to finalize the citizen surveys and the public meetings, kind of where and when and how we'll hold those meetings. I'd like to talk to y'all about that a little bit later. And we need to go through Chapter 5 Economy, which has already been started by myself, and Chapter 6 Community Services and the Facilities chapter. And then at some point, probably early in the summer, we need to start discussing strategizing the utility corridor study, the land use growth area study, and the interstate corridor studies. One thing I would like to propose the idea to y'all today before we talk to the Planning Commission about is having some workshop sessions and some brainstorming sessions along with the public input meetings. The idea of the workshop sessions would be in relation to the utility corridor studies, the land use growth area studies, and the interstate corridor studies. And my idea is that we'd kind of get together possibly some of the Board of Supervisors, some of the Planning Commission members, some of the staff from Wythe County, such as maybe an engineer, maybe a representative from VDOT, and also some of the stakeholders and property owners along the interstate corridors and at the interstate intersections to sit down as a group and get some maps out and look at the areas and kind of discuss what the county would like to do with growth areas, land growth areas, and along as well as the interstate corridor study areas. So the idea would be we'd get together. I think we'd probably need to have at least 2 or 3 meetings, probably 2 workshop sessions. And I think we'd get together, kind of get some maps out, brainstorm some of these ideas. And then after that, possibly we'd hold the public input meetings. So they would be happening on the same day. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that proposition.
Mr. Cotton, I think that would be a good, for the Economic Development Committee to take up and have meetings with Mr. Bush.
Our next meeting in Salem is the first Thursday in May, which will be 7th
Okay.
at 8 a.m.
So that would be an opportunity to further discuss that idea? Okay. And I'll bring that up with the Planning Commission at our next meeting on the 5th, May 5th. Okay. And on the following pages of this first page that I gave you is the drafted citizen survey. And we don't need to go over all of it today. I just wanted you all to have a copy for your review. And if you can, just look through it. And is it okay if they get their thoughts back to you, Mr. Bear? Okay. Just look through it, and I would say within the next week or at least by the end of the month, if you have any comments or concerns or suggestions on the citizen survey, if you could just get that to Mr. Bear, and we'll coordinate on that. Are there any other questions on the comprehensive plan, or?
Does any board member have any questions for Mr. Bush? Hearing none, thank you, Salem.
Okay, thank you.
For coming. Okay, we'll move up on the agenda here. I know Mr. Russell's not here this morning, but we have Mr. Fowler. He's just as good, so we asked Mr. Fowler from VDOT to come up and give us an update.
I know that recently Jeff had spoken with Salel on the 6-year plan, the revised 6-year plan. And at this point, we're working on putting together the drainage issues and fencing issues on Archer Road and Dunford Road, so that when we do move forward after the public hearing on May 27th, that VDOT will be prepared to start these projects. So, and basically, if you guys have any issues in your areas that you'd like to address.
Okay, we'll start over with Mr. Hausman. No, nobody's complained to me.
That's great.
Mine's easy, just to follow up on the one you and I emailed back and forth on.
Yes, and we're working on that now. We had issues with our pipe flusher. I think we've got that back, and we're going to go over pipes and see if we can flush those things out. So.
Thanks, Andy.
I don't, this is the easy side of the table. I don't
Mr. Hale?
Andy, I had written down quite a few things to talk to Mr. Russell about, but we'll let you off a lot easier. What needs to happen now? What can we do to help in the citizens with Archer Road? They reflagged it. I don't assume you did that, but somebody reflagged it. Now, what needs to happen between those flags? I didn't see any stakes. How far do we need to get them to move the fence? And then, this is an engineering question that I'd like for you to go back and look at, or I'll go with you and we'll hold a little bit of schooling out there. It shows the ribbons on the pond side, and that pond is a real problem for that project. Across the road, Mr. Mabe has already set his back. And most any road builder will always take the inside of a curve for widening. Why would we be widening the outside of that curve, which gets us into that stagnated pond? I don't think you've driven it, looked at it, but.
Right, yeah, we've looked at that, and Dave, did you go to the top?
Yeah.
Yeah, they flagged, basically, they flagged the area, and the right side that he's talking about, is there a slope there that has a lot of rock? Is that the issue there? Is that why we went?
There was something about that driveway that goes up to the house, right in the radius of that turn.
And it may be that we need to ride out there together, you, myself, and Dave, and we can.
There are three things that can make that thing go a lot smoother. And if you get into filling into that pond, it opens a whole nother can of worms, maybe literally. But if we take the inside of that curve off, it helps the degree of the curve considerably. It also, I don't understand how it would interfere with that driveway. That place has just gone on the market, by the way, and they were out there last week working on the driveway there. But that was one place. Down to the other end, you notice that one of the fences has already been set back on the Red Hollow end. Mm-hmm. And then the deep part where the most dense fence line is, how do y'all go about that? There's locusts and good firewood up through there. If there was some way we could let people clear that, it would get cleared. And the most dense, I noticed there's a flag there to widen that curve to the outside to get away from that dairy barn. And do you intend to bring the road up any at all where it floods, where the road becomes a creek?
I think they were looking at.
It needs to be raised right through there.
Yeah, it does. So there's a rule that moving dirt don't ever move dirt further than you have to. So there's yardage available to raise that road down through there. But if y'all know how much you want to move the fence, let me know and I'll help contact those landowners. Most of them have indicated they'll move the fence to get the road fixed.
All right, and I know.
The issue up there at the pond, we're not really going to widen to the outside of the turn. We just, to give us a little clear space is the reason we're asking for that fence to be moved. When you get to the lower end, the fence is back, but we have those big trees we have to take out, and we won't compromise the fence when we take those big oaks out. I think that's one reason they recommended setting the fence back a little bit right there.
Let's go back up to the pond a minute. If I remember right, that fence is already right in the edge of the pond, where it's broke off on that side.
Yeah.
Well, if we move the fence, it's gonna be in the pond.
Well, the flag is below the pond, below the dam.
Oh, you wanna start from there down?
Yeah, going the other.
Okay.
Not coming back.
All right.
Too. We need to go the other direction down to the driveway.
Okay.
And there's two large oaks on the left in there.
All right.
Those two trees right
In front of Billy's house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we're not gonna do anything around the pond, we're actually gonna take some of the inside of that turn.
Okay. So the oaks down there in front of Mr. Mabe's house, then, and I can see staying away from that paved driveway.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's do a drive again in the spring. We got 3 of the 8 things you and I looked at fixed. I guess that's a pretty good average, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty good, especially with the winter we've had, so. But yeah, we can do that at your convenience. Just give me a call and we'll schedule a time
All
to
right.
take a ride.
I have a few concerns about some paving in there in my area, Route 94, Ricky Road, Piney Mountain Road.
Ricky Road is on the paving schedule, and, yeah, and basically they've started primaries first, working on 52 on the Big Walker Mountain right now, and they're gonna move their way through the county, and Ricky Road is scheduled to be paved this year. So the whole route will be.
Well, I know I had asked before, and it said springtime.
Yeah. So any time, have you talked to Donnie as far as when you think you might start that?
Now, they're doing, starting on the primaries first.
Yeah.
They're going to the interstate next, they have to pay on the interstate.
But it's definitely gonna be this midsummer. It'll be on Ricky Road.
I think Piney Road from the intersection of 818, their Chevy School, there's almost a mile set up in this year's schedule also. That will be paid.
Gene, I'd like to come back to one I missed with it. When we first started talking about 714 or 712, the Miller Creek Road, we talked about taking it up as far as the school bus run. That's not going to change. That bus is going to continue for the foreseeable future to go up there. That's about 1 2/10 miles, depending on where you start measuring. If you start measuring at the end of existing pavement across the bridge, that'll help because it'll put it further up there. But if you start down there at the intersection where it already is paved, we're going to lose a few 100 feet of new pavement up there, or surface treating.
Right, I think it's my
Then
understanding.
that got, one of the reports got reduced back to a 1/2 mile. Are you going to do that with local forces or with a contract?
Yes, that's a no plan. It will be done by VDOT crews.
Was there any chance it will go as long as the money lasts and get more toward that? The school bus is what tears up the road.
How much further is that past the 1/2 mile mark?
About another 7/10. I measured it from the bridge as 1 2/10 miles would take it to where Smith Road, and that's where the bus turns around and will for the foreseeable future.
Right, and basically what we'll have to do at that time is when they're ready to start that first 1/2 mile, we'll look at what the budget looks like at that time and see how far we can get, how much bang we can get out of our buck, and see how far we can stretch that.
Well, a lot of it's where you start measuring from. If you start measuring from the bridge, it's going to get it, a 1/2 mile will get it into another straight stretch, which one of the only ones there. It would seem like to me we want to end that pavement in a straight stretch and not in a curve. So it'll get around those curves there above the gas line. A 1/2 mile will. We don't have a width problem except one place, and it can be fixed with the motivator real quick. That would put it up there as far as the bus goes. And then it's going to reduce y'all's times of coming up there every year, so that one's going to be a pretty good payback for letting the maintainer and those hours be used somewhere else, because that's where the speed tears the road up is, and the bus running over it every day.
Are you done?
Yeah, you school bus drivers are hard on the unsurfaced road.
Well, I can't help it. Most of them, they pull up and back up. I mean, you're supposed to just go in there and lock it up, spin it around and go on. I mean, be done with it. I can't get them to understand that, Joe. I have one major concern, I guess. St. Peter's Road, right after you come out of Speedwell and go up the hill, the ditch lines on both sides are 2 foot deep. And there's at least one spot, if not 2 spots, that the road is getting narrower every day because it falls in the ditch.
And all the while, they're still planning that project, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say, have you heard anything on that project? Have they ever finalized what they're gonna do?
Still in the planning stage. But we can look at those ditches. I went through there the other day and noticed they're washed out pretty deep, so.
Actually, I was through there yesterday with Terry Crawford, superintendent, and he thought he might get started rock lining those ditches today. If things work out. Yeah, that's his intention, to go ahead and rock line them,
Yeah.
recover that pavement that's fell off. It's pretty bad, so.
Yeah, we can't leave it like that while they're planning, because we don't know how long this is gonna take.
I was gonna say, I mean, I understand not wanting to do a whole lot to it, because, I mean, you are planning on coming back and redoing it, but like you said, you can't.
We haven't maintained one.
Yeah.
Yeah, his plans are, in the very near future, to go ahead and rock, line that ditch, recover the pavement.
I think that was about the only major concern I had, other than people wanting their roads put on a 6-year plan, but I don't foresee us expanding the 6-year plan anywhere, do we?
Not at this point. They're trying to cut us. Cutting where they can now, so.
All right. I think that's all I have.
Yeah. Andy, like I talked to you at the break, I've had 2 from, I think the road here in just a minute, it just left me, Old Stage Road from the town limits out to where it gets more rural, where it's built up so much. There's some people out there would like a need study as far as making that a 45-mile-an-hour zone. And I know you said that when are y'all gonna pave it this summer?
That's on the paving plan this year too. Yeah, it's gonna happen.
South Fork, heading west.
It's gonna cover the whole area where they recently put the water line in. The road's pretty tore up. That whole area is gonna be overlaid this year with pavement. And as soon as that's done, I mean, we can go ahead and start the process for a speed study without the pavement, and at least get the ball rolling there. So,
You're more likely to get posted from 45 currently than after you pave it,
yeah,
because everybody's pretty slow through there now.
right.
Picking their cars up. But after you get it paved, it's going to increase the speed by 10, 20 miles an hour.
I'll go ahead and forward that request to the traffic engineering department so we can get that going.
Thank you, Andy. Does anybody else have any other questions for
Mr.
Mr. Dalton?
The public hearing notice that Jeff had sent me concerning their 6-year plan was for 9/10/27. The board would like to be a night meeting. Jeff indicated to me on the telephone the other day that he has a night meeting and planned a public hearing on the 27th. Can we set this thing for the 28th on a Wednesday so that the public can get here for a 6-year plan?
I'll run that by Jeff, but I think so. I don't see why not.
All the conflicts out of the way. And I think our board of supervisors would like to have it at night instead of during the day.
Yes. I'll just bring this up. I know traditionally, there are still people in our area that have church services on Wednesday night.
I'd rather see it on Thursday if that's possible.
That's, so the 29th,
Of course.
Thursday night?
And that'll have to be, I guess we'll have to check Jeff's schedule.
Yeah, I'll get back with you in short order on that. At what time?
7.
Okay. Anything else?
Anything else, Mr. Dahl?
I guess a couple of things. Public hearing tonight in Bristol, for primary road. I don't think we've seen the schedule of the primary road agreements. Is there one available?
I'll check them. If I can get a hold of it today, I'll forward that to you by email.
And what time's that public hearing start tonight? I know I just come from there, but.
I think it's at 7.
7.
I'll have to confirm that as well.
Public hearings will begin at 6 p.m.
I'll see.
6.
Tuesday, April 22nd, at Holiday Inn Hotel and Suites, Bristol Convention Center, Bristol, Virginia. 6 p.m. And I guess it's not on here, Andy, but when I've talked to Jeff about this, we've got 2 resolutions that have been submitted to us from the Bristol District. It says the support package, it says that there are certain roads that the board, VDOT would like the board to pass a resolution to accept them. And it says on there that it's like 2 miles in the town of Royal Retreat. It says the residency administrator proposes. Is there any chance Jeff can write us a letter saying what impact our added roads costs our maintenance program?
Yes, I'll have to do that. No, he kind of came in on the backside of that because the PIMS group is working on
Well,
that.
but the resolution says the residency administrator recommends.
Yeah,
I'd like to get a recommendation from him. I asked him about it, he had never heard of it.
right, yeah. Actually, I think he found out about it by reading the newspaper. And he was obviously pretty upset about that because he's trying to close the gap between the disconnect between the residency and the PIMS group in Bristol. So he'll be more in the know of situations like that before he finds out in the paper, basically. So basically, I'll get with Jeff and see if he can go ahead and draft that letter for you.
Okay. Before we do it, so y'all were recommending it, so I just, when I called him, he really wasn't recommending it. You got
Right.
that? Thank you, Dan.
Okay.
Thank you,
all.
Andy. Okay, moving on with the agenda to enterprise zones, Mr. Dalton.
Enterprise zone, you have a couple of maps. We need to set a public hearing sometime in late May. The enterprise zone is Progress Park. We're trying to add areas in the town, down along the interstate, around the exits. We have capacity of getting up to 3,800 acres. If you look and summarize what we're showing in our permit, we've added the Hutchinson Acumen area over at page 223 in the back. You're up to 3,083 acres. 600 or 700 acres so that we can make amendments if different places in the county. Somebody came along and wanted to build. So we need to set a public hearing sometime in May. Or maybe early June, hopefully May the 27th is currently day meeting, would be okay.
Does anyone on the board have any objections setting the public hearing for the day meeting on the 27th? Hearing no objections, we'll set the public hearing for
9 to 10 a.m.
That'd be fine. Anything else, Mr. Dalton, on the enterprise zone? Moving along, Parks and Recreation Commission resignation.
She's resigning from the rec side. I don't have a recommendation right now for a new appointee, but
You want to be looking and
I'll be looking, yeah.
bring it up at the next meeting, put it on the agenda for the next meeting to appoint someone from West Whipple District to the Recreation Commission. Okay, moving on, we go back up now. I know you skipped back to old business. Take up the first ordinance, Wythe County Ordinance 2014-01 Motor Vehicle and Trailer License Ordinance. Mr. Dalton, you want to speak to this?
We had a public hearing, discussed the comments. This license ordinance basically takes us back to the original ordinance that we had years ago, registered vehicles. Additional fees to $20 for cars, trucks, whatever the cost for motorcycles and trailers.
$10 for motorcycles and trailers. And this is all this ordinance does, is take the license fee back to the registered vehicles.
The only thing that's not the same as original is originally we did trailers less than 9 foot, we exempted, right, or something like that? And this one,
This is all trailers.
I was gonna say, and this one's gonna be all trailers, right? That's the only real difference? Oh, so if they're less than 9 foot, do they not have to be registered?
Well, even if it's 40 foot, if it's got a farm, it's not registered. But, yeah, if you got a tag on it, you'll get a fee. If you don't have a tag on it, you won't. I think that's the simplest answer.
I think just taking Sam's comments from earlier into consideration, if we accept this ordinance with registered, that should be a benefit for everybody versus having it spun out to titled and registered. So.
I make a motion, we accept this ordinance,
I have a motion.
2014-1.
I have a motion, I have a second.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on ordinance 2014-01? Hear no further discussion, I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horning?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the chair votes aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next ordinance is ordinance 2014-02, tangible personal property tax exemption ordinance. Do I have a motion?
I move we adopt it as written.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. I open the floor for discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I've got Robert's Rules of Order. I see we got that. Surely I don't have to stand up to be recognized. Okay. I would suggest an amendment to the to the ordinance that cuts the ordinance off after Article 4, 4.3, and that Article 5 be addressed in a different ordinance. Yeah, somehow, to me, washing machine and refrigerator is different than tractor, horses, and mules. Because what happens in this case is if someone has an objection to the last part, to Article 5, then they either have to vote yes in opposition to Article 5, or they have to vote no, which puts them in opposition to exemption of household goods. I don't think anybody here is looking to tax washing machines and clothing and that sort of thing.
So Gary, what are you saying you want it?
What I'm suggesting is if you look at the ordinance and you go down to 4.3 and just draw a line right there, and that becomes ordinance 2014-02, tangible personal property tax exemption ordinance. To me, like I said, bicycles, household equipment, clothing, things like that, is more of tangible personal property, I think, than horses and mules and cattle and sheep and goats. And I think that we're being too broad within one ordinance.
So
I know that earlier the board adopted in whenever it was, ordinance 81-4, they adopted an ordinance that just dealt with basically with farm animals and farm equipment.
So
The only thing is, Gary, if you do that, if you don't go change anything on the other, then basically you're gonna have the same exemptions as you've got right now, as you would if you passed this as a whole.
Now, wait a minute, I'm sorry, Gene, say that one more time.
If you pass that first part like you're talking about,
Right.
and don't do anything with the second part,
Right, the old ordinance stays in.
the old ordinances would stay in effect. Well, your old ordinances that you've got in effect are basically the 5.1. Done put my glasses off and I can't see. The 5.1 through H is what our old is what we have exempted now. So I mean, basically, unless we go back and change part of that in another ordinance, then you're gonna have the same thing you got right now.
I think that.
I understand. I mean, I can see separating them.
I think that we're exempting apples and oranges within the same ordinance.
Right.
And I think that if we do an exemption, we need to exempt apples in one ordinance and oranges in another.
and then if we do that, we're going to have another public hearing.
Yeah, that's pretty material.
I mean,
Yeah.
me personally, I'd just like to see us where we stopped at H. I mean, I don't know if y'all got it, but the paper copy that Salel gave us a long time ago, he had a J, K, and L, which was your trailers and your motor vehicles and your trucks, which we took out of the ordinance. I don't see why I know we took them out, and I understand why Joe wanted to take them out, but it says in there, used exclusively for agricultural purposes. So, I mean, if somebody's got a truck that to me, that would leave it up to the commissioner to tell them, to say, yes, it's strictly agriculture, or no, it's not.
Well, how many people we gonna have come in and running all these farm tags that's gonna say, that's all I use it for?
Well, then, I mean,
And
I hate to do it to her, but I mean, that's gonna be her job to go out and look at that truck and say, well, I just don't, I can't see
I
that
don't
being an
think we need to-
exclusively farm vehicle.
Well, I don't think we need to put that on the commissioner to go out driving around every day looking at farm vehicles, see if that's what they're using each.
Well, I mean, I think there could be stipulations that, I mean, you know, if you wanna say it's farm use, you have to bring in a Schedule F to prove it's farm use. I mean, because everybody's arguing that there's people out there that's using farm use on vehicles that they don't even own a farm. So if they don't own a farm, they're not filing a Schedule F for their taxes. So if they could not produce that Schedule F, then she could say, no, it's not a farm use vehicle, so it is not exempt.
Mr. Chairman, one thing, just real quick, one person asked me if it would be possible for, like, and it goes along with what Gene said, and I'm just relaying this because I told the person I would, if, you know, possibility of you know, having some type of sticker or insignia that people have to come in, if they're going to put a farm use tag on anything, have to come in and get, like I said, you know, a sticker or insignia or whatever. Again, I present that because I told, you know, a constituent that I would present it.
Yeah, do you have something to say?
We beat this now for a year. And the ordinance, as we have it formed, makes it a fair and broad tax. And if we start nipping away at it for special interest or based on a few phone calls, I don't think we're doing the right thing. Now, the commissioner, as Gene just brought up, she can exempt if they prove their case. Is that right? But it's up to them. We're talking, the burden is on that person. If she sends the bill, they still have a right to object to it. And that's why I think we ought to keep the ordinance intact and let them use the system as it was designed to be used.
But if we pass it the way we've got it presented, I can come in and tell her this truck is farm use only, and she can't exempt it because we have no exemption for trucks.
She can exempt it.
No, she can't.
No, I can't. Because
Not if our ordinance doesn't exempt it.
without an exemption or something, there's no way that I can.
Okay, well, I still think we ought to keep it, 'cause you're back to worrying about them two silage trucks.
No, it's not
You
my,
know-
it's not my two silage trucks because you're not gonna tax them anyway.
But a silage truck,
They're not
you know,
titled in my name.
well, let's talk about silage trucks. There's very few of them in the county as a count. And you give them an exemption. Should they be exempt when they go to the next farm and start charging for using that truck to haul somebody else's silage?
No, because it's not their farm use.
Right, and
It's a
this
business,
is
yeah.
just how big that quagmire gets. The more you stir it, the worse it smells. Just, I think we keep it level, and there was one of the public hearing people talked about a trailer and a tractor were a unit. Well, I had never seen one that didn't have a fifth wheel on it that let you change trailers as many times a day as you needed to. So it's not a unit, it's two units.
Any other discussion?
I was just looking at the ordinance. I guess it was amended for farm machinery back in '86, but, I mean, it's just, it does define farm machinery, excuse me. I was just trying to see if that was broadening that scope. That seemed to be the feedback was, you know, some people look at a truck as farm machinery and others don't, but that was the major topic of discussion, I guess. But it does define it in the ordinance. in the 1986 amendment.
You know, I think we're trying to make this, what we're trying to do is make it fair for everybody in the county that's pay tax, that the 99 or 90% or 96% of us that pay taxes need to be collecting taxes on the 4 or 2 or 1% of the people it's not paying taxes on pickups and ton trucks and other vehicles. And I just think that's mainly, you know, what I was thinking about this ordinance doing is just making it more fair across the spectrum of the county of people that's paying taxes.
Another thing is, Mr. Chairman, in the proposed ordinance, it defines farm machinery and implements as based on the Code of Virginia.
Yes.
And references that, whereas in the amendment in the 86 ordinance, it doesn't reference the Code of Virginia, so it's a little more definite. If there is a question, it might be easier for the, my question, if you adopt this ordinance, does that 84 ordinance, is it superseded?
Yeah, you're repealing that.
All right, if you adopt the ordinance with
Or reenact it.
Dr. Hausman's recommendations, do both ordinances stay on the books?
Depends on what you pass. I mean, Dr. Housen's suggesting you separate and have a household good exemptions, and then you have a farm exemption ordinance. You have the two exemptions. It's written as just exemption from personal property taxes, and includes the household goods and the farm equipment and whatever's in our draft. If you separate it, currently you don't have an exemption for household goods.
Right.
The commissioner's
Right.
just not taxing it, and hasn't taxed it forever.
Right.
You know, it's because they just haven't taxed those things. But there's no exemption on the books saying that they're exempt from taxation, so that's why that's here. And then the farm equipment is, the section 5 essentially is changing 81-4. It's clarifying that ordinance as to what she needs to be assessing for personal
So
property
we would just
tax.
have one personal property exemption. If it's voted on as proposed, we have one exemption, and it would be a clear definition of farm machinery. And the 84 exemption would go away.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
5.2, if you look at that, it's still got vehicles in there as an exempt.
Faye, that's referring to the vehicles above that. It's not referencing pickups and stuff, it's referencing the vehicles, the four-wheelers, the ATVs.
It said set forth in 5.1, and 5.1 is just the animals and everything.
5.1H.
H.
Has farm machinery and utility vehicles.
Okay.
Well, can I say a word?
Yes, sir.
I guess I'm that fella that y'all keep talking about. It's got them old dump trucks. I probably got 4 or 5 sitting out there, got trees growing up through the middle of them and everything. And you don't come along and let me pay a tax on that. The only thing it's good for me for is if I need a part off of it, I'm going out there and get it. And I cannot see paying a tax on that sitting there. I ain't no farmer, the last thing I am is a farmer. But I'll tell you one thing, I'm gonna get me 2 goats if it's bad. And I'll get them trucks running, I'll haul manure around, nothing else. I'll be washing Jeb Little, I'll drive that tractor down with it. Don't have a tractor. I'm not gonna vote for it.
I mean, are yours currently exempt?
Yeah.
They are.
And they will be after this passes. Is either one of them worth more than $1,000 if you took it to market?
Who's gonna set a price on it?
Do you send a ticket if it's less than $1,000?
Not until this last year, when you have to send one out for a license fee.
Yeah, I send out tax bills with a $20 license fee and no tax.
But, you know, his
Well,
don't have
these
no tags on them, so if they're worth if they come back, the appraisal's worth less than $1,000, he's not gonna get a bill anyway.
I thought
What's
that,
the value of it?
It's gonna take
They use
She
book.
has- She's supposed to assess all the title vehicles.
yes.
And then they make the decision whether they send out the bill, because the PPTR is going to pay for anything below $1,000. They apply that PPTR money to that. But his vehicles are not personal vehicles. So the PPTR doesn't apply to his vehicles. Because he's got a car lot or a storage yard or something, they're not a personal vehicle. So the PPTR money doesn't apply to his vehicles. So the tax ticket should still go to him to pay the tax on that vehicle.
How old is
Unless he has a license for like an auto dealership or a junkyard. And then he needs to be taxed as a machine and tool. Because that's what it is. It's a tool for his trade that he picks up on the machine and tool side.
Is there any other discussion? We do have a motion on the floor and a second.
And there's no way we can put an age limit or anything on trucks or anything?
No, I haven't seen that. And go back to that Dillon's rule issue of it's not there saying we can do it.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'm gonna call for a roll call vote. Mr. Hausman?
no.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
No,
No.
And the chair votes yes. Ordinance passes 4-3. Okay, moving on with the rest of the agenda. I have other, Mr. Dalton has stepped out of the room.
We set the meeting for Thursday evening. When
April
Dr.
the
Brandon was-
24th.
When Dr.
Well-
Brandon was present. I believe that's the whole. Unless that paper he's got in his hand's important.
Mr. Dalton, we're down to other. Do you have any other?
I do. I provided Mr. Randy Cagle today. He needs a certification of local government approval for nonprofit organizations. I think it's an application in. Can you explain? Yes, I think.
He's got more paper.
Take advantage of.
They're going.
So, yeah, thank you for the opportunity to come talk. I'm handing out 3 colorful pieces of paper that really don't address
You got them all.
the issue I needed from.
These paper ain't colored. I didn't know you had paper colored from both ends.
So, first off, April is Fair Housing Month, and I know you folks in the past have done fair housing trainings, and I think it's run its course, and everybody's educated on fair housing. We need to do, my organization, HOPE, needs to do a fair housing presentation annually, so I took this as an opportunity to hand out the yellow piece of paper, which is our Fair Housing Resource Guide. Just informational, we see fair housing issues almost every week at least, where somebody raises a concern or a question or a problem about a landlord issue or a housing addition. So just wanted to be able to say that on the record, we've done a fair housing presentation and you all have received it, and it may be in your minutes, and that is good. And the brochure could be put out here on the desk. Second thing I handed out, just informational, is a street sheet. It's that little green piece of paper. And that's something we hand out every day to clients who walk into our office, the Hope Ministry Center. It's information about what's available in the community in terms of resources. We refer people all the time to all the agencies on the front and the back of that. It's like a welcome wagon guide to Wythe County. It's on our website. You can download it there. We also have a street sheet for the other counties we work in, the Twin County areas and Smith County. And then finally, the blue piece of paper is our most recent quarterly newsletter, just informational about stuff that we're doing. The big thing we're doing now is fundraising to fulfill a challenge grant from the Wythe Bland Foundation to be able to buy our building, the Hope Ministry Center. And if you got a spare $200,000 sitting around, I'd love to talk with you to be able to meet the foundation's challenge. Why I'm here is a piece of paper which we apply. It has been annually to the State Department of Housing and Community Development for dollars to do our housing assistance programs. Well, this year there's a change, one change being that if we apply now, it will be a 2-year contract, so I won't have to come back next year. I'll have to come back in 2 years. So that's a good news that the state's given us the luxury of applying just every 2 years instead of every year. And they've consolidated the programs. We used to have 3 different applications. This year we have one big application. And it's going in for the housing, it's under the umbrella of the Housing Solutions Grant. Part of those dollars are federal dollars, and so this resolution or certification that we need local government adoption or administrator sign-off is for the federal dollars called Emergency Solutions, ESG, Emergency Solutions Grant. And these are dollars that we use to help the homeless, whether they're transients who fall off the interstates, or they're local folks who, a domestic situation, job loss of income, they're just truly homeless. We will put them up in a motel. You might have read a story in the newspaper this past weekend about some of the homeless folks. We can put folks in a motel for a very short stay, and then the goal is to move them from the motel into a permanent house, permanent apartment. It's called rapidly rehousing them. And it's actually doing 2 things, which is a huge improvement. It's more humane to put them into a real housing situation than to put them in a shelter. You know, Crossroads Shelter did a great job for 20 years, but it was still a homeless shelter. And so you literally got warehoused there with other homeless individuals, and kind of on your own gumption, you figured out how to get a real apartment and how to get a real job. Putting you in a real house, you know, it's a little more humane, a little more stable, and it is also saving dollars. That's the most important thing. It's saving dollars over the Crossroads Shelter model. The Crossroads Shelter's budget, when it was running, was anywhere from $120,000 to $250,000 a year. We're using a fraction of that. We've used maybe $40,000 to $50,000 in our entire service area to house homeless people at a retail rate at the motel. So it's actually saving money to do put them in a motel, move them into a house. And our application goes into Richmond on Friday. We need to get this resolution from all the local governments we work in, the 6 counties, Bland, Wythe, Smith, Carroll, Grayson, Galax. You folks are the 5th one I'm asking, and I've gotten 4, and hopefully we'll be able to get this one to include in the package. I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of the above or none of the above. Or
Does anybody on the board have any questions for Mr. Kegley?
A question that comes up from other localities, it wouldn't necessarily come up from you folks. Because we work in the 6 localities, the other counties say, well, how much of your dollars that come from Richmond or the feds get used for Smith County or Grayson County residents? And typically, the dollars that we administer for housing programs, this entire application that we're submitting on Friday will be about right at $400,000. Based on this year's experience, about half of the $400,000 will be for Wythe County residents. And we always wonder, is that because we're accessible and visible and folks here can find us more easily than they can find us from Rocky Gap or Saltville or Cana or Mount of Wilson? Or do we have more problems? And I think it's both. We're more accessible. We do have a fair amount of problems. We get referrals all the time from Smith and Bland and Carroll and so forth, but and we wish the dollars were more evenly distributed, but they get used where the need is.
I'll make a recommendation, we approve this certification of local government approval. for nonprofit organizations receiving ESG funds from state subrecipients for Hope Incorporated.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Hausman? Aye.
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 The chair votes aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Kegley. Mr. Dalton, you have any other thing to bring before the board? Are we still going to recess until the 24th, Thursday?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
They made that decision when you were, before you got here.
Okay, oh, okay.
You were
got-
here, weren't you?
I don't know. What-
Dr. Brandon was, we
Oh,
just did it so,
okay.
because I think Dr. Brandon's going to try to be present.
Oh, okay. Does any other board member have anything to bring before the board? Hearing none, I declare us recess until April the 24th at 5 p.m. I do want to bring something up. They were supposed to have a meeting of the board of directors of the Wythe County Rescue Squad last night. And from my understanding, there wasn't but one that showed up, and that was Mr. St. John. So,
Actually, I called Martha Unberger last week and talked to her. She told me it was tonight that they annexed something for goodies this afternoon at 7 o'clock.
Mr. St. John's office. The meeting was scheduled for there, the date, that may be.
I guess they got confused on the date.
Well, I was planning on being there tonight.
Okay.
I don't know about the date, but I talked to Ms. Dunberger and asked her if I could come and just do a couple clarifications of things.
For our motion and what was voted on, it did say contingent upon them living in the service area, so I guess the other 4 members are still.
What I do know, Roger's, it's got his house up for sale. He's moving back to Wythe County. So, do we want to?
Just wanted to bring that up. Technically, based off his balance, we provided on the balance. Requirement we had to be living in the service area. I can't remember it word for word.
It says that the Board of Supervisors will appoint 5 members of the Board of Directors who live in the service area. For the squad. So, right now, I mean, that does violate the bylaws that we have.
Can we make an exception?
It would take a change in bylaws from the Board of Directors to be brought to the Board of Supervisors to be approved. I mean, as per the bylaws.
I'm
not saying.
we approved the bylaws. Can we make an exception in the bylaws as they're written? Mr. County Attorney?
You gotta go through the amendment process, like Mr. Hausman described, is whatever the bylaws say and how you amend them, and you've gotta go through that process. Well,
Does it actually have to come from their Board of Directors, or can it come from us?
I have to read those bylaws, I don't have them with me today, to see what they say.
I think it says it has to originate with them and be brought to the board for approval.
Of any changes?
That's what it says.
Generally, the board itself will make changes to the bylaws, and
council will take them to the shareholders or whatever, so they'll make a recommendation, come to here, and then we approve them. I know we have, the way they're written is that the board approves any changes to the bylaws.
Okay.
This thing will fire up when you're done.
So we can have them to bring it to us to make an exemption,
You can
exception.
always make a recommendation to them, please
Make-
consider this, and then they can make the decision whether they want to recommend it back to the board or not.
Okay. Does anyone on the board want to make a recommendation to the Wythe County Rescue Board of Directors for an exemption on Roger Hudson living outside the service area?
I would recommend we pass it to them
And let them
and let them come
decide.
back to us. It sounded more like we were telling them what we wanted to do.
Article 5, Section 2, amendments to articles. Amendments to the articles of, oh, that's incorporation, wait a minute. Okay, here we go. I'm sorry, Article 3, Section 3. Changes to the bylaws shall be approved by both the Board of Directors and Wythe County Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
So what we're saying is we inform them of the situation,
Yeah,
let them deal with it, and come back.
okay.
Okay, but let me read Section 3, vacancies. Any vacancy occurring on the Board of Directors, which is then, shall be filled by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors for the unexpired term of that director. Any vacancy among the officers shall be filled by the Board of Directors, so it goes down like that.
Okay. Well, Mr. Dalton, if you're going to attend that meeting this afternoon, you inform them of that, please. And I guess, Stephen, if you can get a hold of Mr. St. John and clarify the meeting date and with Jay and I guess the rest of them, make sure they're meeting tonight.
And they may have a suggestion.
Okay. Any other business? Now it declares recessed until
East side, I don't know.
April the 24th at 5 p.m.